Hey everyone, so we're gonna learn how to paint a sunflower, and again using my brush I'm just going to make sure that we have some of the yellow paint. So this yellow is actually cadmium yellow. Just using my larger brush here to paint some of the petals first before we move on to the middle part right there. So using my brush I'm just going to make sure that we have all these petals using the brush to make all these brush strokes. So the thing is, we want to make sure that the end is thin, and in the middle part just press down a little and then lift up. So that is how we can have all these different kinds of strokes that make up the petals, and this will help us to have this very nice shape that make up these petals. And I'm just using this color to make all these different petals, right? So the thing is, we want to have this alternating kind of pattern for the petals, because in the middle we want to make sure that we have a different kind of yellow that will give all these variations. So we want to just paint leaving out some of the petals in the middle before we move on to the next one. So right here we can see that I'm using some of the browns to make sure that we have a slightly different kind of yellow, a slightly darker kind of yellow by using this brown. And so we have all these different kinds of browns and yellows and orange, and we can have all these different kinds of colors. And although we see the same color, typically the same color on the reference image, but we can try to vary the kind of brush strokes and vary the kind of colors that we can have for all these different petals. So when we vary and change all these different colors, that will give us a very nice kind of variations, and all these color differences will make up a very rich kind of color composition for this sunflower. And so it is important for us to have all these different kinds of yellows and lighter yellows, darker yellows, more brownish yellows, and more orange yellows. So all these different yellows are actually giving us a very nice depiction of all these different petals of the sunflower, even though they are all yellow, but all these differences give us these very nice transitions. So the thing is, we can also vary the sizes and the length of each petal, so we can have some shorter and some longer. That will give us some very nice changes as well. So while waiting for the petals to dry, I don't want to jump straight into the middle part. Okay, so just using the small brush, just gonna start in the areas for the middle part, and just trying to make sure that we have all these different browns and different kinds of light browns and dark browns, and just trying to make sure that it doesn't combine, or it doesn't smudge the areas that are still wet. So by using a dry brush, that will help us to have all these different areas that will not smudge because of the dry brush, as a drier paint will not spread out. So the thing is, we want to be careful because the petals that we just painted is still wet, and we don't want the paint to kind of like smudge into those painted areas. So using this small brush, I'm just trying to add a lot of dry paint to depict the middle part, where we see a lot of all these rough textures, all these pollen and all these very rough kinds of textures, and that will give us all these different colors. We have yellows, we have dark browns, we have light browns, we have greens, we have all these very nice kinds of colors, and that will give us some very nice kinds of color transitions, and browns and orange. So all these different kinds of colors will help us to again have a variation and a change of all these different kinds of colors and different kinds of textures. And this part here is very different from the petals, and using my small brush, I'm just going to use all these very simple flicks of the brush that will give us some very nice kinds of rough textures. And you can see right there, the middle part is darker than the surroundings, so I'm just using more of the darker tone to kind of like depict the middle part of the sunflower. That will give us some very nice kind of color transitions, and the top part there is a shadow area, so I'm just using some dark greens to depict this middle part. So using my small brush, I'm just trying to make sure that we have all these different kinds of colors. So again, making sure that the spaces between the petals are being covered by using my small brush, just trying to cover up all these smaller areas, and that will give us all these different kinds, this orange and browns that will cover up all these areas so that we do not see all these white spaces in between. And using my small brush, I'm just trying to cover up and finish up the surrounding areas where we have this darker tones that are used to depict the middle part of the flower. So just make sure that we have all the different areas here being covered, and using my small brush, I'm just trying to make sure that all these different spaces are being covered using my small brush, just trying to fill up all these white spaces that were left white earlier. So by filling up with the yellow, we will have this very nice texture, as you can see right now, that is being depicted. Right, so that is very important for us to have all these white spaces that are being filled up so that it looks more complete. So using my small brush, just trying to make sure that we have all these textures in, and using my fingers, just trying to smudge and combine all these different areas, and that will give us some very nice textures that we can see in the middle part of the flower. And using my brush, I'm just trying to depict the stem right there. So using my brush, just trying to make sure that we have the stem by using this brush to help me with the stem that is in the middle part of the sunflower, and using my small brush, just trying to make sure that we have all the petals in. And in this stage of the painting, we're going to use a lot of these green strokes to depict all these leaves and all these different greenery that we see right there. So again, using my brush, I'm just trying to use all these strokes that is similar to depicting the petals of the flower to depict the shapes of the leaves that we're seeing right now. So again, I'm using just a few flicks of the brush that will help me to summarize all the things in the distance, and we do not want to paint all these leaves exactly as we see it because they would take too much time. And using my brush, I'm just trying to make sure that we have some sunflowers that are being spread out in the middle, and that will give us all these very nice kind of yellows in the middle of all these greens as well. So this green that I'm using is sap green, and sap green is my favorite green, and it's the only green that I use because it is very close to the natural surroundings like leaves and trees and branches and so on and so forth. So that will give us some very organic kind of feel. So again, using some of the blues to combine with the green to make sure that we have all these different colors, all these different greens. So using just 2 strokes, I'm able to make the shape of the leaf first and then trying to fill it up later. So using just a few strokes of the brush, I'm able to depict the shape of the leaves. So I'm just trying to make sure that we have all these details in by using the brush to kind of like depict all these different details and the greens that we see, the darker greens and the lighter greens, and that will give us all these very nice kinds of color transitions. And we have yellowish greens to depict the lighter green, and dark greens can be used to dark blue and green, and sap green can be used to depict the darker greens. So just trying to touch up on the flower, and then I'm just going to make sure that we have this brush. Again, I'm using the water to just wash away some of the excess colors. I'm just going to make sure that we have more petals in, just trying to touch up on the petal area, just make it a little bit more dense by adding in more strokes. Okay, using my brush, so just trying to have all these different colors and different yellows and different orange that will give us a very rich colors for the sunflower, and that will help us to be able to depict all these different colors and different tonal kind of changes, very subtle changes within those petals of the sunflower. So using my small brush, I'm just trying to make sure that we have some of these details. So once we have the greens in, and when it's almost dry, we can use a small brush to kind of like have all these strokes to depict all the darker kind of colors, the darker kind of details, and of course using a darker yellow to depict the veins of the leaves. So using a few strokes of the brush, I'm able to depict the veins, the details on the surface of the leaves. I'm just gonna use my brush to help me with the green kind of background that we see, okay, behind that sunflower. So I'm just using this brush to help me with the depicting of all these, you know, dark areas and green areas and light green areas and so on and so forth. So the bottom left hand corner there, we have some dark greens, and this is done by using the dark blue with the green. I'm just trying to make sure that we have all these different greens and different blues, and that will give us some very nice dark greens over here. So just trying to fill up the darker areas right here, and using my brush, I'm just trying to make sure that we have all these details in the leaves right here. So using my small brush, just trying to cover up all these white areas, so making sure I don't go into the leaf area. So right there we have all these, you know, strokes using the small brush, and that is very important for us to depict all these details on the leaf as well. Right, so it's important for us to make sure that we have all these veins, and just make sure that our brush strokes are pretty free, so we can have all these very natural strokes when we kind of like flick the small brush. And again, just trying to repeat the same process on the right hand side. So on the right hand side here, we have all these greens and all these things that are similar to what we have done earlier on. And so just trying to make sure that we have some of these darker greens in by using my brush, just painting around those leaves that we see, and just painting around the petals as well. So we have all these different kinds of dark greens, like bluish greens, we have yellowish greens, again trying to vary the colors of the greenery. That will give us more interesting kind of colors. So using my brush, I'm just trying to make sure that we have all these dark greens in, and once it is almost dry, once it is half dry, we can use the small brush to help us with the flicking of the kind of details that we see at the background. So I'm just using the brush right here to help me with the painting of the background, again making sure that we paint around the leaves and not into the leaves. And once the leaf is almost dry, we can use some of the darker yellows to kind of like have all these different veins that are painted on the surface of the leaves. So just using a very free kind of brush stroke to depict, you know, all these different kinds of greens. We have yellows. So these yellows here are summarizing the sunflowers that we see on the right hand side. So again, we don't want to paint all the details of the sunflower, so I'm just using some of the yellows to just depict some of the yellow strokes that we see on the right hand side, and again using some of the green to kind of like help us finish up with the rest of the painting. Right, so again trying to make it lighter, so I'm just using the water and the yellow to kind of like make sure the middle part there is lighter. So again, I'm gonna use some of the brush to help me with some of the details once it is almost dry. So using my smaller brush, I'm just gonna paint some of the darker areas. So we have purple right here. So purple is the dark kind of color that we want to have all these details in. So with just a few strokes of the small brush, we are able to depict all these different details for the background, and just trying to repeat this process right here. And we can see that the painting now is almost done with all these different details for the background. So just trying to touch up with my smaller brush and just trying to fill in all these different kind of details, and we are almost done with this painting right here. Hey everyone, thank you for watching my video, and I hope you have gained valuable insights from my tutorial. If you enjoyed my video, hit the like button, comment down below, and share my video. Do consider subscribing to my channel and hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when I post my next video. Do check out the links below for more information for my art, and I hope to see you in the next one.